What's happening, everyone? I hope you are well. We're trying out a new strand here. I'm really excited about it. Before I get into it, would you do me a favour? Would you drop it a like if you enjoy it? That way I can monitor. If people enjoy it, then we can do it again equally. If nobody likes it, you'll never see it again. Thank you. As I'm sure a lot of you know, on a recent episode of The Kickoff, Lawrence McKenna and I were having a chat about a European Super League. You know what's been suggested by J.W. Henry at Liverpool, that a European Super League could be created, and Lawrence and I were having the debate about what clubs would make it into that European Super League. We were debating it backwards and forwards and ultimately couldn't agree on what clubs should make it. Therefore, I thought we need to give this the due diligence that it deserves, and I'm going to create my very first tier list video. So, without further ado, here we go. Right, so I've put every club into the pot, and I've broken it down into certain sections. The sections are European royalty. There's no debate about European royalty for me. This one will simply write itself. The next tier down is elite. Again, should be fairly obvious. Then there's relevant clubs, clubs that are in the conversation for the Super League. Then there's trivial clubs, clubs that aren't really part of the conversation. And then there's a stop it section, which is simply clubs that do not belong anywhere near the top tier of European football. So let's see if it happens. I think the first thing to do is acknowledge that I am completely and utterly against the forming of a European Super League. I think it would be really detrimental to the native leagues in every country, but it feels fairly, it feels like it's almost certainly going to happen, and it is an inevitable venture. So let's have a look and see what clubs we should start with. I think the obvious place to start is the European royalty. There is no debate here. For me, this is really easy. In, quite simply, goes AC Milan. I'm not interested in recent form. AC Milan are European royalty. The San Siro, that black and red kit, the history of the Rossoneri. There is no doubt that AC Milan belong in that top tier. Being at the very top of their game makes me happy. They've won 7 European Cups. 7. They really are one of the greatest clubs in world football, and the history that is steeped in that stadium is up there with the very, very best. Cast your minds back to the era in the 90s when they were just phenomenal. Gullit, Van Basten, they're a glorious, glorious club. So they are undoubtedly in. Of course, Bayern Munich are in that top tier. Of course, Manchester United are in that top tier. And again, I know Manchester United are currently a Europa League club. I know that they have actually been more of a Europa League club than they have a Champions League club since Alex Ferguson left, which is, I mean, a really surprising stat, because it's quite revealing. Manchester United have played more games in the Europa League than they have in the Champions League, and yet I've put them in the European royalty section. But the esteem and aura within which Manchester United operate make it an undoubtedly European royalty club. They have such a rich history in the club. Obviously, I've seen with my very own eyes Manchester United lift the European Cup. I was in Moscow when they did it. That night that they had in Barcelona, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer scored, after Sheringham scored, Manchester United are European royalty. And I will hear none of it to suggest they are not. In keeping with that, of course, 6-time winners, Liverpool must go in. Liverpool are an amazing European force. They are truly amazing. Kind of irrespective of form, irrespective of the side, irrespective of anything that's going on with Liverpool Football Club, I always think Liverpool will win in Europe. Even if they lose 3-0 in the Nou Camp, you're confident that they will beat Barcelona 4-0. And they did. Liverpool they have the richest history in this country, in Europe, and therefore they obviously demand a place in this top tier. We're flying through. Juventus, again, non-negotiable. No club has lost more finals, I believe, than Juventus. I mean, I almost was about to say we've moved on, but I mean, the kings among kings, Real Madrid. We don't really need to discuss this one at too much length, do we? Benzema, Di Stefano, Puskás, the Bernabeu, the all-white kit. These guys mean business. There's nothing quite like a night at the Bernabeu when I'm watching it on the telly. When you hear the music, the Bernabeu is almost like the music. The Champions League music is so iconic, as is the Bernabeu. And 13 European Cups. I can barely get my head around that. 13. Bearing in mind, fairly recently they won 3 in a row. I called them the King of Kings, and they are truly that. So I think we may have now completed the European royalty section. Oh, forgive me. See, Barcelona are an interesting one, man. I don't know. Barcelona's recent history in Europe has been exquisite, but they don't have a huge track record pre this era. Do they make? Yeah, they do. Just. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're assuming that I've been too harsh on Barcelona because of the modern era. But look, before 2005, you know when they beat Arsenal, 2005-06, they'd only won one. So all of their success is post 06. They had one European Cup prior to 06, and at that point, they had the same amount of European Cups as Jose Mourinho had. You know, Jose Mourinho had won one, they had won one. So I know they've won 5 in total now, and I know in terms of royalty, they do belong. I've put them in the royalty tier. You know, obviously Messi, Suarez, Rivaldo, Kluivert. It's there. It's apparent. We know it. But for me, they don't have the prestige of the other clubs, and that's why they've only just made it in. Like I say, prior to 06, they'd won one. Okay, that concludes our European royalty section. No other club belongs in that upper echelon of European elite. The creme de la creme of the creme de la creme. That's what they are. So there are 7 clubs that make it into that. We've got AC Milan, Bayern Munich, Manchester United, Liverpool, Juventus, Real Madrid, and Barcelona just. Okay, now we are in the elite band. The elite tier of European football. In here we go with Ajax. Ajax very unlucky not to make the European royalty. They are a club that's contributed so much to Europe. They won it in 95. I remember Patrick Kluivert scoring. Huge win for them, and they should have retained it. They were robbed the following year. They actually played Juventus, and Mark Overmars talks about this. It's a fascinating interview. You really should look it up. But Mark Overmars talks about playing Juventus and how he knew that they were the better team. He knew that they had the beating of them, but Juventus had something else. I'll leave that with you. Juventus just had a little extra, and Mark Overmars couldn't quite put his finger on what it was. So Ajax have made it into the elite band, as have Inter Milan. Inter Milan have won it 3 times. And when you think of their iconic players in this tournament, who are you thinking of? Do you know who it is for me? Very handsome man, looked glorious in the blue and black kit. For me, it's Hernan Crespo. But you have to give a mention. Javier Zanetti. He was the boy for Inter, wasn't he? This is hard. Okay, this is an interesting one. Chelsea are going into the elite tier. Chelsea are London's only winner of the European Cup. For that logic alone, we need to be here. Chelsea have been competing regularly in this tournament. We have been competing regularly and being successful in it. You know, we forever get out of the groups. 1999 was our first experience in it. So that's incomparable to say what Manchester City were doing. Chelsea were playing in the San Siro. Dennis Wise was scoring in the San Siro. And that was taking place in the same year as Manchester City were in Division 2. So there is no comparison between Chelsea and Manchester City in this. Also, I'm going to do it now. Arsenal I'm actually going to put in the relevant category, because I believe they are. And therefore, Chelsea having won it, Arsenal having not won it, Chelsea having beaten Arsenal in a European competition very recently, Chelsea having knocked Arsenal out of the European Cup in 2004, Chelsea have to be above Arsenal in this, and I think that Arsenal are at least relevant. Or are they trivial? Where do Arsenal sit? Do you know what? Arsenal's record in Europe is not good enough. Chelsea have won far more European trophies. Chelsea have planted our flag in Europe so much more than Arsenal. I wonder if there are two bands between us rather than one. Relevant. Arsenal are currently irrelevant, but that may be changing. Other clubs that are in the relevant category are Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, neither of whom have won the tournament. Neither of whom have a particularly rich history in the tournament. Paris got to their first final very recently. Manchester City have never progressed beyond a quarter-final under Pep Guardiola. The semi is the furthest they've ever got. However, the reason that they're in the relevant segment is because both of these clubs will win the European Cup within the next 3 years. I think that both of these clubs will have a European Cup to their name within the next 3 years. Therefore, the fact that they haven't won one yet means that they can't be in either of the tiers above, but they are relevant. So they are in the relevant category, as are Borussia Dortmund. So I've put Dortmund in the relevant category, which I think a lot of you will be a little bit angered by, because effectively I've put them in the same category as Arsenal. Actually, now I've said that out loud, that doesn't feel right. I'm going to leave it simply because Dortmund have won it once, but you know, when I think about brilliant Dortmund players in the Champions League, I can only really think of Aubameyang. That's the iconic player for me. Obviously, that team that won it, I think Paul Lambert was in it, but hasn't really resonated with me. And I feel like, Manchester City, Paris, who are all in the same tier, are far better placed to win it. So I hope I haven't done Dortmund a massive disservice here. Porto. Atletico Madrid need to go into the elite band. Atletico Madrid are in the elite band, forgive me. Into the trivial goes Roma, Marseille, former winners of course, Basel Boli and all them boys, Valencia, Galatasaray, get out the way. Who knows what that is a reference to? Someone comment. If you get it right, you get a prize. Galatasaray, get out the way. Do you know? Nah, none of these boys get anywhere near. Lyon can go with trivial. I know they got to the semi-final last year, but they're not higher than trivial. Benfica make it into trivial. Ooh, Napoli can go one up. Napoli are relevant. Seville, this is an interesting one. Seville, they feel... Are they relevant or are they trivial? I think they have to be trivial when you look at the other company. Because if they're not trivial, that means Roma are not trivial. And it's then it's going to kind of pollute my other sections. I think it's a bit overwhelming. Okay, that leaves us, right, we can do this easy. Tottenham, stop it. Everton, stop it. Celtic, stop it. Rangers, stop it. Schalke, stop it. Monaco, stop it. Well, that was easy. Right, there we have it. That concludes my first ever tier list video. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have as well. If you have, would you consider dropping it a like, just so I can monitor it, and if you like it, you'll see another one. And if you don't, you never will hear of it again. I will banish it onto the ash heap of history. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video. I'm out.